Welcome to Sinful's Horror Stories. Tonight's video features true horrifying stories, all submitted by viewers like yourselves. I want to make sure everybody sits back, relax, and stay sinful. Story number 1. Every night I hear my mother through the walls. She never talks during the day, only at night. Like clockwork, she begins at midnight and abruptly stops at 6 a.m. I've heard everything from harsh whispers to playful talking, cackling, and even screaming. Some of the things I hear her say frighten me, dark and dreadful things. I go to check on her, but when I enter, silence. She just rocks in her chair. I can't take it anymore. I moved in with her a week ago. After the hospital called, I knew I had to come back home. The doctor told me she had been suffering from seizures these past few years, and that they were getting worse. My mother needed full-time care, and I volunteered. Even though she has always been estranged, and I haven't seen her in a decade, I knew she needed me. But it's gotten too much. She scares me. She doesn't even eat, and I've tried and tried, but she won't open her mouth. I've tried to get her out of her bedroom, or at least out of her chair, but she gets so aggressive. So I've been bathing her right where she sits. She doesn't mind much. She just rocks in her chair, mindlessly smiling at her closet. She does this all day. I can handle caring for her throughout the day, creepy as it is, but the night, I can't anymore. Today I gave in. I went to her doctor for help. I told him that she's keeping me awake, whispering and talking. I told him it's getting too much and she's starting to scare me. What the doctor said next scared me even more. Your mother bit off her tongue years ago. She can't talk. Story number 2. Since I was 18, I have lived alone, but decided to move home to my mom after a few years to save money, as well as we all really enjoy each other's company. We live in a small apartment in a big city, which is a little cramped for 2 people, but nevertheless has its charm and is obviously nice to have. Since I was a teenager, I have struggled with sleep, both struggling to fall asleep and stay asleep. For the most part, I have nightmares every single night that I remember down to the smallest detail in awakened state, both taste, smell, colors, mood, and surroundings. 2 years ago, I was laying in my bed sleeping soundly. Nothing particularly had happened that day. I had been at work as usual and relaxed at home in the evening. All of a sudden, I woke up to someone pulling my foot lightly. It wasn't a hard pull. It was as if someone took a grip around my ankles and pulled with normal force, as if to wake me up. I stiffened and became terrified, and instinctively pulled my feet up under me. No one else was in the room with me, and I heard my mom sleeping in the room next door. I don't remember anything else, and I must have fallen asleep pretty quickly after that. Then I woke up again, but this time I am standing in my bed, straight up and down, and looking up at the ceiling as I scream, without a sound. I saw myself from the outside, as if I had an astral projection, and it looked horrifying. My face had stuck in a spine-chilling grimace, and I remember how I stood there screaming, without a sound. What I was screaming for, I have no idea, but that night was absolutely awful. and I had to sleep in my mom's room for several weeks after this incident. Story number 3. Something lives deep in the woods where I grew up. Most people only talk about it in hushed whispers, nervously glancing over their shoulders. The rest use it as a cautionary tale, warning their children not to venture too deep into the trees there. My parents were the latter. They used the legend as a way to keep me out of the forest behind our house. I always got a laugh from their warning. I knew things like that didn't exist, yet they would swear by it. The patchwork man walks tonight. He'll steal your children and taint their souls. Yeah, right. Tell me another one. I wasn't a naive child, and I was a street-smart teenager. They couldn't fool me with their fairy tales and lies. It didn't matter that they wove tales of an entity so depraved that not one adult would set foot near the forest at night. The fact he was said to slip past lit windows searching for his next victims to play with didn't bother me. It wasn't real. A creature who stole the flesh from children's bones wasn't something that existed. It was only a campfire story, nothing more. So I decided to prove them all wrong. Everyone told me not to look for him. I was only inviting danger, because once he set his sights on you, nothing would stop him. I didn't listen. I had to prove them how wrong they were. Now I know the truth. I was the one who was wrong. Everything you've heard about the Patchwork Man is true. He is your worst nightmare, personified. The stories people tell are about a pale reflection of what he truly is. I know this. I know it very well. I'm now one of the damned who lingers in these woods, my life snuffed out by he who dwells within. I issue this warning. Lock your doors. Keep your lights on and hold your children close. The Patchwork Man walks tonight. Story number 4. It was a warm, humid morning. Moisture seemed to cling to everything, even before I left the house. Walls were slick, floors damp. My parents would have said that the house was sweating if I had still been living with them. My Aunt Lisa told me to be careful in the fog. You can hardly see your hand in front of your face, it's so thick. I chuckled at her. I wasn't laughing when I stepped outside into that opaque fog. It really was thick. I don't think I'd ever seen fog like that before. Don't think I'll be seeing any like that again. I hope I don't. It wasn't the wispy type of fog that I was used to. The kind where you can still see the road stretching before you, shrouded in a light mist. The kind you could ignore. This fog was different, like a solid wall of fog. The air around me blended perfectly with the sky, also white and opaque. It hung like a curtain, making me feel claustrophobic. Nonetheless, I began my trip to work. I work at a grocery store about 5 miles away from where I live with my aunt. I walk. I know how to drive. I own a car, but I prefer not to use it for a short distance trip. In fact, I prefer not to use it for anything except school, which is over in the next town. I get a bit anxious when I drive, plus walking is greener. Today I almost used the car. The fog was just so thick and wet and white. I could hardly see 2 feet in front of me. It was surreal. I was going back to get my keys when I realized it would be safer to just continue walking. No matter how badly I wanted to be out of that fog, I would rather be minimally uncomfortable than maximally dead. The fog made my everyday journey unrecognizable. I relied mostly on my sense of direction. While I didn't live in the middle of nowhere, I also don't have any neighbors. It was a good distance before I started seeing other buildings, finally penetrating the stark whiteness with their dark, looming shapes. I couldn't make out any of their features, but the fact that they were there made me feel less alone. I figured I was on the right track when I heard cars passing by me regularly. My usual course was near the busiest road in town. I was careful to stay on the sidewalk. My surroundings were still unclear when I reached my third intersection. I made a left turn there after a brief hesitation. Did I always turn this way? I couldn't remember, but it felt right. I decided to trust my instinct. It wasn't long before I started questioning myself. The sounds of traffic had slowly disappeared, replaced by an unnatural silence. I tried to remember if it was ever this quiet on my way to work, but my brain was foggy. My flesh broke out in chills, and I turned around then, certain that I had made a wrong turn. Even though I was going back the way I came, I didn't hear the sound of traffic gradually getting louder as I neared the street. I didn't hear anything. That's when the dread set in. I started running. I didn't know if I was going the right way. In fact, I was sure I wasn't. But something told me there was no right way anymore, that no matter which way I turned, I would still be running farther from familiarity, from safety, that I would still be running deeper into that dense white fog. The fog seemed to grow thicker around me. My terrified brain conjured up a memory of reading The Mist by Stephen King. I was young when I read it, but not young enough to genuinely be frightened. Yet as I sprinted through the even thickening fog, the sudden thought of giant monstrous creatures hidden by that solid white state made my heart skip a beat. Sam. The sound of my name brought me to a halt. I looked around, blind in the fog. Hello? Sam. It came again. It didn't sound like anybody I knew. I began backing up slowly. Sam, the voice hissed. It seemed to come from everywhere around me, like the fog was talking to me. My stomach dropped at the thought. I felt something touch my shoulder and I jumped. I began running again, but quickly became winded. Each breath was heavier than the last, the dense fog settling in my lungs like lead. I was nearly choking on it. I could feel it surrounding me, could see thick white tendrils of fog curl around my limbs like tentacles. Sam, the fog whispered, the words slithering over me. Fog forced its way into my open mouth as I gasped for breath. I felt my body go limp, but I stayed upright, as though something else was keeping me up. My senses faded as more fog entered my body, but I didn't care. An eerie calm had come over me, as though I had been sedated. Suddenly I heard the screeching of tires beside me. Samantha! A voice shouted at me through the window. It took me much too long to recognize my Aunt Lisa. She was wearing a piece of cloth over her mouth and nose like a mask. Hold your breath and get in the car, she shouted. I obeyed. I noticed then that my clothes were soaking wet. I shivered, but not because I was cold. For that brief moment when the fog had forced its way into my lungs, it felt like I wasn't alone in my body. She sped back the way she came, taking us home. How did you know I was out there? I asked her. I didn't even know where we were. I tracked your phone, she said. How did you know to come find me? Your job called. They said you were 2 hours late. She sighed. I knew there was something off about that fog. I called in sick to work and stayed home the rest of the day. I don't think I'll be going anywhere tomorrow either, The fog hasn't let up yet. It's growing darker as the sun sets, but it's still there, thick and gray and alive. My aunt has towels stuffed between the cracks in the door to keep it out. I hope that's good enough. Thank you guys for watching. Please be sure to leave a like, comment, share, and subscribe for future content. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, do it now. And make sure to leave a thumbs up on the video. Share this video with as many human beings as possible, because a sinful society needs more love. Email your true scary stories to thesinfulsavant@gmail.com. I'll leave the link to my email in the description box below as well. Until we meet again, stay sinful.